Warning. The following episode contains graphic depictions, discussions of death and mutilation, discussions of violence, and presentations of otherworldly horror. Viewer discretion is advised. Everybody ready? We start in 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome to the Foundation. New recruit. I'm the director of Site-230, Dr. Robin. I manage this little hole in hell to keep everybody else safe from what's contained within. If you're listening to this clip, then that means we need your help. You see, you probably know this world to be governed by simple mathematical laws that tell you what to expect. Objects in motion stay in motion. You can't spontaneously create matter. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, if you think back to your earlier years. If you are particularly adventurous, then maybe you hit some laws that make less sense, but are still explainable with the systems that you know. Quantum computing, wave-particle duality, maybe life as an emergent property. You may have touched on dynamical systems, eusocial insects, and other things that no one can know perfectly or in their entirety alone. Now I need you to throw that all away. Those rules are still true in a general sense, but we at the Foundation handle something much, much larger. I want you to think back to the horror stories of your childhood, to a time where magic was real, where demons walked the earth, and where there were powers of teleportation, flight, mind control, summoning, alternate dimensions, invulnerability, and spontaneous healing. I want you to know that this is all real. And sadly, almost all of it wants you dead. So in comes the Foundation. Operating clandestine and worldwide, the Foundation operates beyond jurisdiction, empowered and entrusted by every major national government with the task of containing anomalous objects, entities, and phenomena. Many of these anomalies pose a significant threat to global security by threatening either physical or psychological harm. All of them undermine the natural laws that the people of the world implicitly trust in. The Foundation operates to maintain normalcy so that the worldwide civilian population can live and go on with their daily lives without fear, mistrust, or doubt in their personal beliefs, and to maintain human independence from extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, and other extra-normal influence. Our mission is threefold: secure, contain, protect. That's what the SCP in our name, the SCP Foundation, comes from. But why? Why all of this, and why contact you for this? To quote the administrator himself, mankind in its present state has been around for 250,000 years, yet only a small fraction of that has been of any significance. So, what did we do for nearly 250,000 years? We huddled in caves and around small fires, fearful of the things that we didn't understand. It was more than explaining why the sun came up. It was the mystery of enormous birds with heads of men and rocks that came to life. So we called them gods and demons and begged them to spare us and prayed for our salvation. In time, their numbers dwindled and ours rose. The world began to make sense when there were fewer things to fear. Yet the unexplained never truly went away, as if the universe demands the absurd and the impossible. Mankind must not go back to hiding in fear. No one else will protect us, and we must stand up for ourselves. While the rest of mankind dwells in the light, we must stand in the darkness to fight it, contain it, and shield it from the eyes of the public, so that others may live in a sane and normal world. And now, breaking from the quote, having told you the basics of everything you could possibly need, we need your help. We need more members, more researchers, more warriors. We need people who can make humanity stand up tall and see past the dark. And if O5 Command has sent you to me, then they need you to be the best, most flexible agent that we have at Site-230. Welcome to the team. Over the next few months, you're going to be getting to know me very well. I'll be the one who trains you, who brings you up to speed on all the horrors, beasts, and anomalies that we have. Here's the plan. O5 has granted me something that we've almost never done before. As the director, I currently sit at level 4 clearance. I get to know as much as anyone who isn't in the O5. at least when it comes to what we handle at our site. Given the goals of your training, as long as you're with me, you get my level 4 clearance as well. You should feel lucky. I know you have your own duties and your own trainings, but every week at 9 p.m. Atlantic, you're with me. I'll take 1 hour every week to tell you about the various anomalies we have on hand that we keep away from the public. I'll cover a few extras as well, ones that let you know what these anomalies are capable of, that you might encounter in the wild or are just really interesting and useful for you to learn about. Each lesson will take the same format. I'll give you a number, a class, and a name, and then I'll tell you how we contain it, just in case something goes wrong. If you take nothing away, take that part away. Then I'll describe it for you, and I'll cover any extra information you need. We have interview logs, histories, stories of past containments and failures for many of these anomalies. This information will be useful for you. Each of these documents has been written by one of our greatest researchers on our teams. They can sometimes be a little dry, but they're important, and I'll be sure to spice it up for you. We'll do this for a few months. At first, I'll cover the most basic, most important anomalies. Then I'll cover the less well-known ones that you may need the score on, but other researchers don't, the ones specific to you. Then, if you're doing well in these lessons and we're ahead of time, I'll treat you to some of the mysteries on hand, things that it'll be your job to help solve once you're done your trainings. And then, and only then, I'll tell you some of the tales of these anomalies. Rather than their need-to-know sheets, I'll let you in on the old documents, the old histories, things that will help you get a grip on these anomalies without covering the most fundamental sheets on hand. And if this all goes well, by the time we're done, you'll be ready to take on everything we have. Now, you're not supposed to rely on me alone for this. This is to pair with your other trainings, to bring you from good to great. And that's everything. Now, there's a lot of detail I left out, but the rest is better for you to learn as we go. I don't want to overwhelm you as we begin. With this done, check your clock. Remember how I said these meetings are an hour? Well, we haven't got there yet. Your training begins now. I'm going to treat you to some of the most well-known anomalies we contain or have contained here at Site 203. I'll give you an overview and tell you about the basics and get you ready for your future trainings. Let's begin. We'll begin today with a simple anomaly. You see, many of our anomalies, also called SCPs, can grow quite violent, dangerous, or even terrifying to learn about. Some of them are even dangerous for me to talk about, as they come with their own effects and horrors and knowledge that can seriously bring you harm. That's not how your first lesson should go, and we need to make sure we take the time to prepare before we cover those files. We'll cover those as well, don't get me wrong. But to begin, and to catch you up to speed on what these things can do, I present to you SCP-914, the Clockworks. The original researcher who wrote this file has sadly been lost to us, but this variation of the file was initially given to us by a researcher of the alias FAR-2. Object class, safe. Before I continue, let me give you a little bit of information on this. Every SCP gets their own object class, which is a categorization of generally how contained that SCP is. Don't get me wrong, the term safe is a bit of a misnomer. When you hear that word, it does not mean that the SCP can't harm you. Instead, what it means is that the SCP is well contained and, to the best of our knowledge, has no way of breaking its containment. Safe simply means, as long as you read about this file, you know we have it under control. As promised, we'll begin with the special containment procedures. Only personnel who submit a formal request and receive approval from Site Command may operate 914. SCP-914 is to be kept in a research cell, numbered 109-B, with 2 guard personnel on duty at all times. Any researchers entering 109-B are to be accompanied by at least 1 guard for the entirety of testing. A full list of tests to be carried out must be given to all guard personnel on duty. Any deviation from this list will result in termination of testing, forceful removal of personnel from 109-B, and formal discipline at Site Command's discretion. That's me. Warning, At this time, no testing of biological matter is allowed. Refer to document 109-B:117. Applying the rough setting to explosive materials is also not advised. Now, we move on to the description. Now that you know how this anomaly is contained, I can tell you what it looks like and what it does. SCP-914 is a large clockwork device weighing several tons and covering an area of 18 square meters, consisting of screw drives, belts, pulleys, gears, springs, and other clockwork. It is immensely complex, consisting of over 8 million moving parts comprised mostly of tin and copper, with some wooden and cloth items observed. Observation and probing has showed no electronic assemblies or any form of power other than the quote mainspring under the quote selection panel. 2 large booths, measuring in 3 meters by 2.1 meters by 2.1 meters, are connected via copper tubes to the main body of SCP-914. They are labeled intake and output. Between them is a copper panel with a large knob with a small arrow attached. The words rough, coarse, 1-to-1, fine, and very fine are positioned at points around the knob. Below the knob is a large key that winds the mainspring. When an object is placed in the intake booth, a door slides shut and a small bell sounds. If the knob is turned to any position and the key wound up, SCP-914 will refine the object in the booth. No energy is lost in the process, and the object appears to be in stasis until the output booth door is opened. Intense observation and testing have not shown how SCP-914 accomplishes this, and no test object has ever been observed inside SCP-914 during the refining process. The process takes between 5 and 10 minutes, depending on the size of the object being refined. Now that we have completed the description, I present to you the addendum. Recall earlier that I mentioned that extra information will be provided in these files. Addendums provide a way for us to list that extra information that you might see as necessary. The most common of these addendums are test logs. So I present to you Addendum 514, Dr. Test Log. Input: 1 kilogram of steel, on the setting rough. Output: a pile of steel chunks of various sizes, appearing to be cut by a laser. Input: 1 kilogram of steel, setting 1-to-1. Output: 1 kilogram of steel screws. Input: 1 kilogram of steel, setting fine. Output: 1 kilogram of steel carpet tacks. Input: 1 kilogram of steel, setting very fine. Output: several gases that dissipated into the air quickly, and 1 gram of an unknown metal, resistant to heat of 50,000 degrees, impossible to bend or break with any force, and a near-perfect conductor of electricity, measuring at 1.6 times 10 to the negative 75 rho. Input: 1 wristwatch belonging to Dr. Setting coarse. Output: 1 completely disassembled wristwatch. Input: 1 cell phone belonging to Setting 1-to-1. Output: 1 cell phone, although different make and model. Input: 1 standard Colt Python revolver, setting very fine. Output: data expunged. Aforementioned completely disintegrated all matter in its line of fire. Object contained with very high density gamma waves. Input: 1 white mouse, setting 1-to-1. Output: 1 brown mouse. Input: 1 chimp, setting fine. Output: data expunged. Input: 1 chimp, setting rough. Output: badly mutilated corpse, showing signs of crushing and cutting with high heat. That concludes our first addendum. I now present to you document number 109-B:117, Doctor and Dr. Test Log. Input: subject D186, a male Caucasian, at 42 years old, 108 kilograms, and 185 centimeters tall. Setting 1:1. Output: a male Hispanic man. At 42 years old, 100 kilograms, and 188 centimeters tall. Subject was very confused and agitated. Subject attacked security personnel. Subject terminated. Input: Subject D-187. Male Caucasian, 28 years old, weighing in at 63 kilograms, and 173 centimeters tall. Setting: very fine. Output: data expunged. Subject escaped from the test chamber, killing 8 guards as well as Dr. and Dr. Lockdown initiated. Subject causes containment failure of 3 SCP areas in continued escape attempt. Special response team engages subject, resulting in severe wounding of subject, partial memory loss in special response team members, and corrosive damage to plumbing. Subject expired several hours later, dissolving into blue ash and blinding nearby research team. Biological testing with SCP-914 discontinued. And finally, a note from one of our doctors. Because of the nature of this SCP, a wide range of test data would be helpful. Dr. Gears has ordered that any researcher can have access for non-biological testing if they themselves are, or they are supervised by, a Level 3 researcher. All testing is to be recorded in file number 914-E, or experiment log 914. Biological testing will continue only with prior clearance by O5 command. As long as you want to try something mundane that isn't alive, feel free to help accumulate data. Our next SCP will not be a collection of clockworks, or even an inanimate object. Instead, I will take this opportunity to present to you an SCP that shows signs of sentience. Although this sentience has not been confirmed, the behavior of this next SCP suggests as such. As well, by presenting this SCP, I get the opportunity to teach you about the more expanded forms that exist here at the Foundation for describing the danger levels and risk and disruption levels of SCPs. Thus, I present to you SCP-4999. Someone to watch over us. This file was originally submitted by a researcher who used the alias CadaverCommander. Object class: Keter. Disruption class: Eki. Risk class: Notice. By dividing the containment class into 3 terms, we present to you a more holistic way of understanding the risks posed by this SCP. By its containment class being Keter, it is difficult or impossible for us to contain it, or we have failed to do so in any form. With the disruption class of Eki, you know that this is a very disruptive SCP and interacts with the average person. And with a risk class of Notice, we are, as far as we are aware, this SCP does not and will not cause any harm. Thus, I present the Special Containment Procedures. Due to SCP-4999's unwillingness or inability to appear before more than one person at a time, in addition to the subsequent and immediate death of any who witness it firsthand, SCP-4999 is effectively self-containing. Any reports of SCP-4999 manifestations captured by security camera feeds, photographs, or similar are to be investigated, and the media confiscated for analysis. All second-hand witnesses among the civilian population are to be amnesticized. Description: SCP-4999, hereafter referred to as the SCP, is a humanoid entity of unknown origins and composition. Its physical appearance varies, with dark formal wear being the only constant between manifestations. Due to the rarity of recorded SCP manifestation events and the highly specific circumstances in which they occur, little data concerning its nature or intent is available. However, its behavior is consistent across all recorded sightings. The SCP will manifest only in the presence of one solitary human person at a time. All subjects recorded to date have been in terminally poor health, critically injured, or on their deathbeds, with the SCP appearing nearby and within sight of the individual not more than 20 minutes before their expiration. SCP-4999 will only appear if the subject is conscious and alone. It will not appear if the subject is comatose, asleep, or unconscious, nor will it appear if they are being cared for by, in the company of, or otherwise being directly observed by another person. Upon manifestation, the entity will seat itself directly adjacent to the subject's bed, if such furniture is available. If not, it will remain standing or sit on the floor or ground in whatever configuration will allow it direct physical access to the subject without causing disturbance. Once situated, it will remove a pack of cigarettes from its left inside jacket pocket and offer one to the subject. If the subject accepts, the SCP will place it between their lips, remove one for itself, and light both. If the subject declines, the SCP will light and smoke the cigarette instead. The entity will make physical contact with the subject, typically via holding their hand, placing its hand atop theirs, or resting its hand on their shoulder. The SCP will then remain silent with the subject, completely unmoving, until the subject has passed away. The SCP has not been seen to engage in any other activity or behavior, and de-manifests immediately upon the subject's death. The subject's cigarette, however, will remain, providing the only physical evidence of the SCP's presence. No subject thus far has been seen to recoil from or otherwise resist the entity, nor has any attempted to engage it in conversation, despite multiple instances of subjects acknowledging the entity's presence via eye contact, adjusting posture to reciprocate or facilitate the entity's touch, or breaking into tears when noticing its presence. Individuals affected by the SCP share a number of common attributes. Research into identified subjects has indicated that the SCP is more likely to appear if an individual lives alone, is non-religious, is impoverished or homeless, displays a history of mental illness, is a military veteran, has no criminal record or has never been convicted of a violent crime, has no currently surviving family, is unmarried or otherwise lacks a significant other, has little to no social standing in their community, does not exhibit any record of significant professional or personal accomplishments, has too few to no mutually beneficial interpersonal relationships, or exhibits qualities and life history that have rendered the individual nondescript, anonymous, neglected, or otherwise unremarkable or insignificant by the standards of their respective society. No testing involving SCP-4999 has been authorized or attempted, due to available data indicating that observation of a subject precludes its manifestation, as well as ethical concerns. And now, a note on the discovery of this SCP. This SCP was initially discovered as the result of its emerging status as an urban legend, with footage of the entity appearing on hospital security cameras worldwide, being disseminated via the internet and various television programs. A minor disinformation program was put into effect to maintain this public image, and the SCP was officially registered on November 27, 1998. In the years following the SCP's classification, additional research and cross-referencing with accounts of similar phenomena have suggested that, while concrete evidence of the SCP appearances has become more commonplace due to the advent of photography and video recording technology in the modern era, writings and artistic depictions of a figure exhibiting similar properties, behavior, and physical resemblance to the SCP exhibit throughout world history, culture, and mythology, with some accounts being thousands of years old, in some cases predating human civilization. It is not currently understood how pre-modern cultures would have been capable of detecting the SCP's presence. Investigation is ongoing. And now, I wish to provide you with a bit of a treat. Our previous two SCPs, or anomalies, were focused on more peaceful discussions, one of them being mechanical and interesting, and the other serving primarily to aid people in their final moments. Now, I'll present you with a classic, an SCP that we once did contain at this site, though is more prominently located at Site 19. And that is SCP-049, the Witch Doctor, originally written by researcher Gabriel Jade and edited and further researched by researcher djkaktus. In this file, I'm not only going to be presenting my own readings, but rather voice clips and interview clips from the research graciously provided to us by the original authors and researchers, as well as a team of researchers who conducted the interviews, including researchers by the names of TheeSherm, Taylor Itkin, Dr. Cimmerian, and VolgunStrife. Now we can begin. The object class for this SCP is Euclid. Where the previous two were safe and Keter, Euclid means containable, but difficult. We begin with the special containment procedures. SCP-049 is contained within a standard, secure, humanoid containment cell in Research Sector 02 at Site 19. SCP-049 must be sedated before any attempts to transport it. During transport, SCP-049 must be secured within a Class 3 humanoid restriction harness, including a locking collar and extension restraints, and monitored by no fewer than 2 armed guards. While SCP-049 is generally cooperative with most Foundation personnel, outbursts or sudden changes in behavior are to be met with elevated force. Under no circumstances should any personnel come into direct contact with SCP-049 during these outbursts. In the event that SCP-049 becomes aggressive, the application of lavender, L. multifida, has been shown to produce a calming effect on the entity. Once calmed, SCP-049 generally becomes compliant and will return to containment with little resistance. In order to facilitate the ongoing containment of SCP-049, the entity is to be provided with the corpse of a recently deceased animal, typically a bovine or other large mammal, once every 2 weeks for study. Corpses that become instances of SCP-049-2 are to be removed from SCP-049's containment cell and incinerated. SCP-049 is no longer permitted to interact with human subjects, and requests for human subjects are to be denied. Temporary Containment Procedure Update. See Addendum 049.3. Per Containment Committee Order 049.S19.17.1, SCP-049 is no longer permitted to interact directly with any members of Foundation staff, nor is it to be provided with any additional corpses to be used in its surgeries. This order shall persist indefinitely, until such time a consensus regarding the ongoing containment of SCP-049 can be reached. SCP-049 is a humanoid entity, roughly 1.9 meters in height, which bears the appearance of a medieval plague doctor. While SCP-049 appears to be wearing the thick robes and a ceramic mask indicative of that profession, the garments instead seem to have grown out of SCP-049's body over time, and are now nearly indistinguishable from whatever form is beneath them. X-rays indicate that, despite this, SCP-049 does have a humanoid skeletal structure beneath its outer layer. SCP-049 is capable of speech in a variety of languages, though tends to prefer English or medieval French. While SCP-049 is generally cordial and cooperative with Foundation staff, it can become especially irritated, or, at times, outright aggressive if it feels that it is in the presence of what it calls the pestilence. Although the exact nature of this pestilence is currently unknown to Foundation researchers, it does seem to be an issue of immense concern to SCP-049. SCP-049 will become hostile to individuals it sees as being affected by the pestilence, often having to be restrained should it encounter such individuals. If left unchecked, SCP-049 will generally attempt to kill any such individual. SCP-049 is capable of causing all biological functions of an organism to cease through direct skin contact. How this occurs is currently unknown, and autopsies of SCP-049's victims have invariably been inconclusive. SCP-049 has expressed frustration or remorse after these killings, indicating that they have done little to kill the pestilence, though will usually seek to then perform a crude surgery on the corpse using implements contained within a black doctor's bag it carries on its person at all times. While these surgeries are not always successful, they often result in the creation of instances of SCP-049-2. SCP-049-2 instances are reanimated corpses that have been operated on by SCP-049. These instances do not seem to retain any of their prior memories or mental functions, having only basic motor skills and response mechanisms. While these instances are generally inactive, moving very little and in a generally ambulatory fashion, they can become extremely aggressive if provoked, or if directed to by SCP-049. SCP-049-2 instances express active biological functions, though these are vastly different from currently understood human physiology. Despite these alterations, SCP-049 often remarks that the subjects have been cured. And now, Addendum 049.1, the Discovery. SCP-049 was discovered during the investigation of a series of unknown disappearances in the town of Montauban in southern France. During a raid on a local home, investigators found several instances of SCP-049-2, as well as SCP-049, while law enforcement personnel engaged the hostile 049-2 instances SCP-049 was noted as watching the engagement and taking notes in its journal. After all of the 049-2 instances were dispatched, SCP-049 willingly entered Foundation custody. The following interview was conducted by Dr. Raymond Ham during the initial investigation.
Alors, comment devrions-nous commencer une introduction?
Is that French? Can we get a translator?
The King's English. No need for translation, sir. I can speak it well enough.
Good. My name is Dr. Raymond Ham, and I...
Ah, a doctor. A like-minded individual, no doubt. Wherein is your speciality, sir?
Cryptobiology. Why?
A medical man, such as myself. Wonders abound. And here, I worried I had been abducted by common street thugs. This place, then, this is your laboratory. I had wondered, as clean as it is, and with such little trace of the pestilence here.
The pestilence? What do you mean?
The scourge. The great dying. Come now, you know what is it they call it? No matter. The pestilence, yes. It abounds outside these walls, you know. So many have succumbed, and many more will continue to, until such time as a perfect cure can be developed. Fortunately, I am very close. It is my duty in life to rid the world of it, you see. The cure to end all cures.
When you say the great dying, are you talking about the bubonic plague?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, I see. Right, well, the entities our agents encountered at the house, they were dead when you encountered them, yes? You reanimated them.
In a manner of speaking, you see things too simply, Doctor. Expand your horizons. Life and death, sickness and health. These are amateur terms for amateur physicians. There is only one ailment that exists in the world of men, and that is the pestilence, and nothing else. Make no mistake, they were very ill. All of them.
You think you cured those people?
Indeed. My cure is most effective.
But the things we recovered were not human.
Yes, well, it is not a perfect cure, but that will come with time, and further experimentation. I have spent a lifetime developing my methods, Dr. Ham, and will spend a lifetime more, if necessary. Now, we have wasted too much time. There is work to do. I will require a laboratory of my own, one where I can continue my research unimpeded. And assistance, of course, though I can provide those on my own. In time.
Oh, I don't think our organization would be willing to...
Nonsense. We are all men of science. Fetch your coat and show me to my quarters, Doctor. Our work begins now.
Interviewer's note. While SCP-049 is capable of communicating in a very human way, there is a strange sense of unease that one experiences when in its presence. Make no mistake, there is something very uncanny about this entity indeed. Additionally, we've confiscated that pointed stick that SCP-049 keeps waving around. Part of this was due to standard confiscation protocols for the possessions of anomalies, and part because 049 really is a menace swinging it around like he does. The entity was displeased at first, but after we made some concessions in providing it with test subjects, which are, admittedly, more for the benefit of our own research, it warmed up to the idea. Next, I present Addendum 049.2, the Observation Log. While in containment at Site-19, SCP-049 has spent a considerable amount of time studying and performing surgery on the various mammalian corpses it has been provided. SCP-049 will routinely spend several days performing surgery, and then, regardless of whether or not the corpse becomes an instance of SCP-049-2, spending several more days documenting its findings in a thick leather journal stored within its doctor's bag. SCP-049 will often seek to share its findings with members of the Foundation staff. The following is a log of several occasions during which SCP-049 was observed operating on a mammalian corpse. Subject: Observational Log 049.OL.1. Summary. Subject: SCP-049. Preface: Test Subject D85123 was introduced into SCP-049's containment cell. The entity expressed sincere gratitude towards all members of the containment and research staff. Observation notes: SCP-049 began by asking D-85123 several standard medical questions as it began removing tools from its bag. Shortly after finishing its preparations, SCP-049 quickly closed the distance between the two, killing the subject with a touch to its throat. Afterwards, SCP-049 made a number of considerable alterations to the basic structure of the subject's corpse, often introducing fluids from within its bag into the subject by way of a hand-powered pump and copper tubing. The resulting 049-2 instance became animated, flailing and grasping at the walls of the chamber with a number of manufactured limbs, while moaning out of an oblong orifice now present in its sternum. During this time, SCP-049 was observed taking notes of the instance in its journal and remarking to the watching research staff about the efficacy of its cure. Security personnel entered the chamber to move SCP-049 back to its containment and were attacked by the instance. The security team dispatched the 049-2 instance, and SCP-049 returned to its containment with no resistance, stating that it was pleased with the results. Observational Log 049.OL.2 Summary. Subject: SCP-049. Preface: SCP-049 was provided the corpse of a recently deceased goat. SCP-049 expressed gratitude at the provision. Observation notes: SCP-049 operated on the goat corpse for several days, eventually resulting in an instance of SCP-049-2. SCP-049 expressed pleasure in this outcome, though admitted the disease was still in its nascent stage. My veterinarian practice is rudimentary, but the patient responded well to the procedure. Observational Log 049.OL.3 Summary. Subject: SCP-049. Preface: SCP-049 was provided the corpse of a recently deceased orangutan. SCP-049 expressed noted gratitude at the provision due to the similarities between the orangutan and common human physiology. Observation notes: SCP-049 spent several days operating on the orangutan, reanimating it several times. However, SCP-049 appeared to be discontent with the results it experienced, returning to the creature 3 times after its initial reanimation for additional work. After it was unable to reanimate the corpse a 5th time, SCP-049 turned the corpse over to Foundation staff for incineration, stating, "I have learned so much from this, though I fear my early optimism was misplaced. I hadn't yet come across such a stumbling block on my road to the cure. More subjects like this would do a great deal in advancing my research." Observational Log 049.OL.7 Full. Subject: SCP-049. Preface: SCP-049 was provided the corpse of a recently deceased bovine. SCP-049 expressed mild annoyance at the provision, though accepted it nonetheless. Observation notes: SCP-049 spent several days operating on the bovine corpse, breaking only to dine on a requested dinner of thin crackers, salted pork, and hard cheese. beginning first by embalming the corpse. SCP-049 was observed producing a number of long syringes from its bag, each containing a different, dark, viscous fluid. SCP-049 described these fluids as essences of the humors, and elaborated by saying the pestilence may bring about a systemic imbalance. In such a case, before true healing can begin, one must find the humors in balance, or the body will reject the cure. Over the next few days, SCP-049 spent a considerable amount of time adjusting the organs of the bovine corpse with a number of large metal instruments. After 8 days, SCP-049 produced a lightning rod, which Dr. Ham exchanged for an electric cattle prod attached to an extension cord, and struck the corpse in several locations. This action seemingly had the effect of reanimating the bovine, which once again became ambulatory despite the inversion of the head and reorientation of the limbs. Next is a follow-up interview from this case.
We've watched you work for several weeks now, and honestly, I'm not sure I understand what you're doing. Could you describe your process in detail?
Oh, goodness no. The process is most intensive. As I said to your assistant, the best instruction you will find about my methods are here in my journals, as I have kept exhaustive records of my work there.
Oh, I see. Well, my concern, Doctor, is that we still don't understand what you're seeking to cure, or how it manifests, or how turning these creatures into quasi-living, mindless drones helps in that effort.
You do not understand the pestilence, even after all this time. Doctor, it is an unspeakable horror, one that has shown its true face many times before, and will again. I find myself blessed with the wisdom and good senses needed to root it out and destroy it. But many, like yourself, cannot. It is a cruel judgment, I fear, to be at the mercy of a disease you cannot fully comprehend.
That still doesn't answer my question. How's your cure any kind of cure at all?
It is a cure. You may laugh at my efforts if you please, but do not besmirch the good name of scientific progress that has developed this great mercy. What you short-sightedly see here is a life better than any this creature could have hoped for. Stricken as it was with the pestilence, this creature is now clean, unable to spread the pestilence, and free from the terror it would have experienced otherwise.
This is hardly a creature at all, Doctor. It's not even...
Do not jape with me, sir. You and your colleagues are like so many others, unable to look past minor setbacks to see the salvation taking place before your very eyes. Do you wait to remove rotten timbers until the whole collapses on top of you? No. You find them and you pull them out and replace them with those untouched by rot. And most of all, you do not simply mock the structure because it now looks different to you. It is strong. It is free of disease.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to agitate you. I'm just trying to understand.
Yes. Well, do mind your words in the future, Doctor. I am a professional, but even professionals may feel the bite of pride in dealing with criticism of their masterpiece. I will forgive this as an act of good faith between colleagues.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, that will be all. Another test subject on the usual schedule. You know my preference of subjects with more human anatomies.
Addendum 049.3. Date 04/16/2017. Incident. Starting shortly after SCP-049's initial containment, Dr. Ham conducted a number of interviews with the subject regarding its anomalous properties, and over time began to note its displeasure with the subjects and the SCP-049-2 instances. This continued for a period of several months, during which SCP-049 never exhibited any aggressive behaviors. On April 16, 2017, Dr. Ham was entering SCP-049's test chamber to conduct another routine interview. The entity began to grow anxious and asked Dr. Ham if he was feeling well. Following protocol, Dr. Ham reminded SCP-049 that the interview was required, after which the entity became hostile and attacked Dr. Ham, killing him. Due to a lapse in security protocol, and because Dr. Ham did not activate the in-chamber emergency system, Dr. Ham's corpse was not discovered until 3 hours later, by which point SCP-049 had converted it into an instance of SCP-049-2. In the aftermath of this incident, SCP-049 was interviewed by Dr. TheeSherm.
I need you to explain yourself. SCP-049, you are being directed to explain your actions, and I will remind you that failure to cooperate will result in further restrictions during your containment.
My actions do not need to be explained.
You killed Raymond Ham, and then butchered him until he...
Not dead. No, not dead. He is cured.
Cured? Cured of what?
The pestilence, sir. I had thought you, at least, would realize what luck it is. I detected it before.
What pestilence? You keep going on and on about this pestilence, but you have not once been able to properly identify this disease. What could you have possibly seen in him today that you had not seen so many times before, that it would be worth his life?
The pestilence presents and progresses in unforeseeable fashions, and has a queer way of creeping into the unprepared. And call it what you want, Doctor. It was a mercy I did to him. He is cured.
He is a vegetable.
I would not expect you to understand. You and your ilk have proven time and time again not to be men of science, but men of emotion. You cannot appreciate the horrors I have seen. Those many millions who have succumbed to the pestilence and been changed.
Your cure cost Ray his life.
No, good sir. I have saved it. You would allow this world to slip back into the despair of disease and death, ignoring that I have created a miracle. And
what disease? What pestilence? He was a healthy man. He was a good doctor.
I'm offering it freely to the afflicted. You are not worth this argument, sir. You are short-sighted and foolish. Dr. Ham was sick, and I cured him. I am the only one who can do this. My work must continue. There is still so much to learn, so much.
I've had enough of this.
And
consider your allowances revoked.
Saved. Even you.
Welcome to containment, 049.
Might be saved.
We're done here.
I can save them all. I can cast down this plague once and for all. I can do this. Only me. I saved him. Dr. Ham. I cured him. He was sick. I know he was sick. I know he was. And you are all sick, but I can save you. I can save all of you, because I am the cure.
Addendum 049.4 Post-Incident Report Interview. The following interview is an excerpt from the 4/16/2017 049 Incident Report. The interview was conducted by Dr. Elijah Itkin and took place 3 weeks after the start of the initial investigation.
SCP-049, we are conducting this interview to close out our investigation of your actions taken on April 16th that resulted in the death of a staff member. Do you have any comments to make? Only that I look forward to the day when you will allow me to resume my work. I have spent the last few weeks compiling my notes and constructing a new theory for how the pestilence was able to infect someone in such an insidious manner that I nearly couldn't detect it. Have you experienced any remorse for your actions? For the death of Dr. Ham? Ah, yes. Well, The death of a colleague is always regrettable, but in the face of the pestilence, we must be swift, Doctor, and act without hesitation.
Dr. Sherman noted in his report that you seemed to be mournful during your initial interview.
Mourn? Perhaps. I had not thought that. It is lamentable that a fellow doctor became infected, but the work continues. Regrettable as it was, Dr. Ham's death provided important insight. Living human subjects are the only way to proceed forward, I am decided. My cure is of little use on dead flesh, and I have gleaned all I can from your generous supply of corpses. My desires turn towards tending to those still living who suffer from the disease.
I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed.
Oh, Doctor, I wouldn't be so sure.
And that brings us to the end of today's lesson. I hope you found the previous files to be informative and to properly, at least somewhat, prepare you for life at the Foundation. I will see you next week at 9 p.m. Atlantic on CHSR 97.9 FM in the Fredericton region, on www.chsrfm.ca online, or on your favorite podcast platform for your next lesson. And as we close, I would like to give a thanks to those in real life who contributed to the production of this episode. In particular, I would like to thank Kevin MacLeod, who produced the music you can find in the background of this episode. You can find the background tracks I used and more at incompetech.com, all under the Creative Commons Attribution 4 license. Secondly, the previously mentioned SCP authors, whose content was provided under the Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license on the SCP Wiki. I would also like to thank djkaktus, who provided audio, which included voice actors TheeSherm, Taylor Itkin, Dr. Cimmerian, and VolgunStrife.